years previous. It went up. The number of people in private prisons went down. Went down as the number of people in prisons altogether went up. Private prisons are parasites on the system. They didn't create it. Of course they lobby for laws that are going to help them. They didn't create it. They feed off it, like a mosquito or any other parasite. That's what they are. And destroying private prisons won't get one person out. Not one. Not one. The second thing that many people think causes mass incarceration is the exploitation of the labor of the people inside. And because, reasonably enough, we imagine that since prison so strongly oppresses and engages people who are descendants of people who had been enslaved in this country, that must be the reason why all those black people are locked up. It's not. And they went to the county governments, whatever they're called, their board of supervisors, the name doesn't matter. And they said to the county governments, and these are not very high population counties, they said, do you have a jail? And of course every county has a jail, and these guys said, yeah, we have a jail. And the investment banker said, listen, we'll lend you money to expand the size of your jail. And once you've done that, we guarantee that immigration, ICE or the marshals will rent the space from you. So expand the size of your jail, and then we guarantee that you'll make money hand over fist, renting that space out for people who are detained undocumented. We're built on land, with a couple of exceptions. We're built on land that used to be used for agriculture or lumbering, that kind of thing, mostly agriculture. And therefore, in places where very vulnerable workforces, especially, but not exclusively farm workers, have been struggling for a very long time to secure some kind of steady, predictable income for the backbreaking labor, they did. That's where the prisons go. And meanwhile, we know that most of the people who are sent to prisons come from similarly mighty front of people in rural and urban California to stop prison expansion. Can we do this? And we rolled in, and we started to learn, and we discovered a pacifist organizer, Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not altogether sure that I could be quite as saintly as Mahatma Gandhi and remain committed to principles of nonviolence, but I do think trying to be true to principles of nonviolence is one of the ways that we open our minds to thinking about solving problems.
MP Chronicle presents The Black Girl Show, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on LA Talk Live.
Global North created conditions in which profits from capital were taken by the state and redistributed to the people. So that whether or not you had a wage, you had an income, you had shelter. They still have free health care in the United Kingdom and all over Western Europe. If you get sick, you go to the hospital, they see you then. They think it's a scandal in the United Kingdom if you have to wait a week. That's a scandal, right? I'm not crazy about the United Kingdom, but I'm saying this is the kind of difference, right? There was income, there were protections from calamity, and opportunities for advancement, and advancement didn't necessarily mean you go to post-secondary school, right? And man, you figure out what you want to do with your life and you do it. You want to be an artist, be an artist, yes. If we had more artists, maybe you'd have less war, all right? Well, the capitalists had no choice but to pay these huge taxes for some decades to underwrite the welfare state, right? Tax goes from the capitalists, redistributed to the people. Why? Communism! They were afraid, and rightly so, that if modestly educated people in the prime of their life couldn't get what they wanted under the system in which they lived, they would change the system. So the capitalist welfare state was the means through which capitalism organized itself to save capitalism from capitalism. I came across, just randomly reading one night, a piece he wrote, or was translated into English, I should say. I don't know when he wrote it, but it was translated into English in 1976 and published in a journal, and I happened to find it in this journal. I picked up in an old journal. And he was talking about how in the Soviet Union, so this is back when there was the communist revolution, going global, US, a little nervous about welfare, attacking the welfare state. He talked about criminalization in the Soviet Union and the division between the so-called social criminals, or the ordinary or rank-and-file criminalized people, and the political prisoners, right? The so-called, the word used in English at that time was dissidents. Right? And that he said this division between these two genres or groups of prisoners is a new thing in the history of the world, he said. It used to be that people on the bottom tended to be in more solidarity. Now, whether or not this is true, it's a really interesting thing to think about, especially to think about in terms of what I just described to you as happened here in the United States. That people turn against people who have been convicted, people who have been arrested, forget about convicted, people who have been arrested, and who here has been arrested? Hands up. Who's gone to jail? Hands up. Who's had people turn on you because it happened? Hands up. Right, right. Turning on people instead of saying, there must be something here we can figure out together. Instead, it's like, let me pretend you don't exist.